Okay, well, this is my attempt at a re-record of the live training I did last week called the Midlife Metabolic Mystery, 5 common mistakes that women over 40 are typically making that contribute to more belly fat. So that was the title. Last week, I created this training and then did it live on Zoom, which was also supposed to stream live in my Look Like You Train group, but I don't typically do live Zooms, and therefore the live didn't make it into the Facebook group. So anybody in my Look Like You Train group that wasn't on the live Zoom didn't get to see this. So I'm re-recording it because it ended up being a little bit long, and this is also going to go out to our main page, our email list, our other Facebook group. So, and then of course, drop it into my Look Like You Train group again. So this is a re-record of that presentation. And so I'm just going to dig right into this. Okay, so why are we here? So I'm going to do a share screen here in a second. And but ultimately, we're here to talk about this, what seems like a mystery to a lot of women, where they're over 40, over 45, or whatever that may be, and they notice a redistribution in body fat where they gain more fat in their abdomen, belly fat. So you don't even have to gain a significant amount of weight, although I believe the average weight gain through like perimenopause is 5 to 11 pounds. But you don't even have to gain a significant amount of weight to notice a redistribution in weight to your body, to your belly, right? So this is what most people think is very unexplainable because they've been doing things the way they've been doing things. And I literally just read an email about this today. I was maintaining on X calories for Y amount of time, and all of a sudden I wasn't. So it seems unexplainable because what you were doing was working until it doesn't work. And the good thing is it's very explainable. It's very understood. So when we can explain and understand why something happens, we can look at the cause of why it happened. So weight gain, the belly fat, fatigue, energy issues, sleep issues. These are all symptoms of what we'll find out is the same thing. And this belly fat gain is also a symptom. So when we understand what's causing these changes, then we can strategically address them properly. So this is for any of you that identify with that issue. And if you're not even at that point yet, but you're kind of in this over 40 bracket, pre-perimenopause, not too complicated a dieting history, this is more about being proactive because you will go through these changes. This does happen to all females. And the women who go through it worse or have more significant symptoms or issues have a more complicated and colorful dieting history. So either way, regardless, the solutions are still the same. So that's what we're going to talk about. This is pretty common. These are age-related changes that are naturally going to occur as you go through the end of basically your reproductive life cycle, right? Or from a very colorful dieting history, because from a metabolic and hormonal standpoint, these two situations, lots of dieting past, perimenopause, over 45 metabolism type of things, from a metabolic and hormonal standpoint, they look really similar. So we're going to dive into these 5 mistakes. And the good thing about talking about mistakes, it's kind of like an add by subtracting. So we're going to say, stop doing these things, which also in and of itself says, start doing these things. And this will gradually start to move you back in the right direction. So without further ado, let's roll. Okay, so midlife metabolic mystery. Where am I? I want to be right here. So 5 common mistakes women over 40 make that contribute to more belly fat. So here's a quote to start. I got 2 actually. Learning what not to do is sometimes, I think often, more important than learning what to do. This is the issue. And this is what is very, very challenging for a lot of ladies, because especially if you've been in fitness and had past success with training and achieving goals and your physique, so on and so forth, weight loss, is that you psychologically connect that success to how you achieved it. So for example, if you did some crazy stuff and you lost weight or made progress through the contact lens of what you thought was good progress, you're going to psychologically connect success to that and think, even if you don't want to do it again, that's what worked. This is where a lot of former competitors struggle, because they've done something that obviously produced a really extreme result, but the method was so mind-numbing that they just can't bring themselves to return to it, despite the proof that it worked for them in the past. So the unlearning aspect here, if you've been pounding it with HIIT and boot camps and cardio and all these types of things, learning to accept that that's not going to work anymore is really, really important and really challenging. So I pause there because a lot of the things that I suggest to stop doing and to start doing, they're not that complicated in and of themselves from an execution standpoint. They're complicated in here to believe fundamentally this is the right path for me to be on right now. You just have to recognize that there's two lanes here. You can't keep trying to be on this lane when your body is in this lane. You're literally going to just continue to struggle with the process. I've learned you cannot fully grab onto something new until you completely let go of something old. Old mentor of mine, Scott Abel. So he's one of the OGs in online coaching, has written about metabolism issues probably before anybody has. And this is, again, to say you have to just be fresh, be teachable, be open-minded, and understand and look in the mirror if you're this person and say, what I'm doing isn't working right now. So I'm open. Why do women over 40 struggle so much with increased belly fat? So there's going to be a common cause here that we're going to end up talking about, and it's going to be stress in the system. So the causes, though, we look at, like I touched on early on, are one, a long dieting history. A long dieting history is really stressful. So what this could mean is lots of dieting in the past, extreme dieting, too long dieting, all sorts of just that. A long fitness history, basically, a long attempt at weight loss, cyclical dieting where you've yo-yoed, so on and so forth. Perimenopause and menopause will also do the same thing. All ladies that go through this tend to notice some increased fat gain in their bellies. So the causes are the same. The issue is if you have a colorful dieting history, you've been around fitness and training and physique chasing goals for a long time, you can accumulate what are unnatural consequences. So in the competitive world, you have extreme dieting, really low body fat situations for women, unnatural, right? And if this isn't done right, and oftentimes even when it does, to take your body to that level, you can experience a lot of unnatural consequences and by unnatural, I mean, they're not supposed to happen because your body wasn't expecting to be taken through this type of under-eating stress over time, if you will. Natural consequences around here are just perimenopause, just the wear and tear on metabolism. So if you think of like the slow-moving conditions of poor health, like diabetes or blood pressure, heart disease, all these things that show up later on in life with age, they didn't happen then. They're not reactive issues like stubbing your toe. They were a slow kill, a slow burn over time, right? They just accumulate over time and lifestyle. This is the same thing in this context. Things accumulate over time. So that's metabolism. So there's a wear and tear component to it. That's natural. Ending your reproductive life, going through perimenopause and menopause, that's natural. You're supposed to do that. The unnatural added to the natural makes this process more challenging, more complex, and you need to be more serious to have success through that. So what you notice is the proportions of fat distribution change, like I said, right? So you have a higher waist to hip ratio. You kind of go from like an hourglass to a fire hydrant, right? You're just thick in the middle. Your shape's gone. So the issue with this is that this higher waist to hip ratio, we may just see it through the lens of aesthetics and say, hey, we like to look like we train, my physique, I've got belly fat. But there's also greater health risks associated with a higher hip or waist to hip ratio. This is this central type of adiposity, the central belly fat. So this is associated with increased inflammation, increased visceral belly fat, and further metabolic complications. So the key point here to understand is that this is a symptom. Too many people are looking at the weight gain and the belly fat issue specifically as the actual problem, and therefore mentally and strategically, I think I need to address the belly fat issue specifically. That's missing the mark. That's not the problem. Seems like a small thing, but this is a big distinguisher. It is a symptom of the problem. You're attacking the wrong thing by trying to band-aid that issue with more cardio, with more of the things that have contributed to it. Unknowingly, you'll end up stepping back into them and only contributing to more belly fat gain over time. So you must focus on the problem, not just singular symptoms. Again, sleep dysregulation, having energy issues, low morning energy, low mojo, low libido. These are all symptoms, right? We're not looking to address well, let's solve the libido issue. Let's solve the digestive issue. What is upstream that is connecting all of these issues together? The problem, too much metabolic stress in combination with a more stress-sensitive body. So stress and hormones, how do cortisol, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, insulin affect your belly? So these are all the metabolic hormones that dictate your success. So metabolism, you have to recognize, this is an important one. This is your body's stress barometer. It has got a little antenna on your head just seeking out the stress. And when it senses stress, it's going to send signals to the rest of your body. After 40, you have a more reactive metabolism. It's just more sensitive. There's just more wear and tear. It's not new anymore. So it is more stress reactive, and therefore things that would have been stressful anyways become more stressful. So let's take a calorie deficit. Let's take HIIT cardio. Let's take low carbs. Let's take poor eating. These are stressful anyways to the body, but they're in an appropriate level unless you go an extreme path, but pretty normal. In this block of time, these things become more stressful to the body because your hormones are all out of balance. That system is not happy right now. So this is signified by the increased belly fat. So if you actually are noticing a redistribution of fat, more chub on the tummy, you don't need any lab work or anything to know that this is actually this is what it is. This is the cause of that. There's no other way belly fat redistribution changes unless this is causing it. So we have to address the root cause, stress. There's a network effect. Everything is connected in your body. This is important. So women are extra susceptible to the effects of chronic stress on sex hormones. So you have cortisol, which is your body's main stress hormone. This stress elevation negatively affects estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, so your sex hormones, also thyroid output and insulin function. So you have to also, a lot of times people talk about hormones in isolation, just cortisol or just thyroid or just progesterone. Hormones act not in isolation, but in a symphony. They all are interconnected in a network effect. So if one hormone, cortisol, shoots up, there's going to be an effect on other hormones. In this case, we're going to see an effect on insulin function, right? There's going to be a more promotion of resistance, so carbohydrate intolerance. We're going to see progesterone really crash, and that's going to dysregulate estrogen, her sister. So we have fluctuating hormones. This affects your mood, your fat distribution. We're also going to see lower thyroid output. So the furnace is cooling down a little bit. So all of these situations really create a fat storing type of metabolic factory. So progesterone, a little bit of science here, can be used to make estrogen and testosterone, but under high stress, the body uses it to make even more cortisol. So it's like a double whammy on you here, thus lowering progesterone further, stealing from testosterone and estrogen production, which furthers the imbalance. So the balance that you ladies have with progesterone and estrogen is one of the reasons why women typically have smaller waists than men, because when you have healthy levels of P and E, this protects you against the negative consequences of elevated cortisol, which would be belly fat. We often identify central adiposity or the belly with high stress fat, high cortisol fat. So then you can understand that as your progesterone levels are falling due to stress, or which is chronic extreme stress, or due to perimenopause or menopause, you lose the protection against cortisol, and now you see cortisol get to do the nasty on your belly fat. So moving on, healthy progesterone and estrogen levels protect you from some of elevated cortisol's negative effects, like I just said, belly fat accumulation. So the other thing to consider here, when we look at what's causing this, your sex hormones, progesterone and estrogen, will often have a larger relative drop than testosterone. You have testosterone too, just less than I do. So this puts you in a lower progesterone, lower estrogen environment, potentially with higher relative testosterone, right? So T still drops, it just drops less than these ones do. So you have a potentially a high relative testosterone situation in a high cortisol and high insulin resistant situation. This is the classic belly fat formula right here, right? So right now we're just explaining why this is happening, giving a little bit of hormone background to it, Some of you might be interested in the details, some of you not. We'll get into the practicalities of this, which is really what's most important, right? You're not going to remember half this stuff, doesn't matter. But this is the issue. We have elevated cortisol. We have a dysregulated relationship between progesterone and estrogen. We have higher relative testosterone potentially, and we have elevated insulin levels. So this all comes back upstream to metabolic stress. This is the problem. So if your system is overall under a lot of stress, physiologically, whether that be, again, from peri and meno, from lots of dieting, from the wear and tear on metabolism, even from life stress, we're all in this age bracket. We have families, we have maybe aging parents, we have jobs, we have psychosis of the world. These are all stressful things, right? So it's caught here, it ends up in your body. So the only way to address this is to look upstream, because if the chronic stress is really pervasive in your body, every system wears out. There's certain systems that become just not required, right? They're just not, when your body is in a chronic stress state, you are in a, what I say here, fight or flight. Your body is feeling unsafe. This is your readiness hormone. So when the problem is being in ready mode 24/7 or chronically. So if you think about being the natural example, being a deer in the wild and you see a lion, obviously that fight or flight response is going to be flight. But what's supposed to happen is then the response, that wound up readiness response, winds back down. You get into a parasympathetic state, a rest and digest, a peaceful state. Nobody's physiology is designed to be in a chronic readiness state 24/7, like a lot of you ladies are. So think about that. If you are the deer and you are in an emergency, is reproduction really important to your physiology? It's not. There go the sex hormones. Is digestion really important to your survival right there? It's not. There goes your digestion. And what happens when you're in this chronic state, you do lose digestive abilities. And with the loss of digestive ability, you lose nutrient absorption as well. So this is a cascade effect downstream that affects multiple systems, because your body cannot wind down and relax. Your body also wants to fuel up in a crisis, fight or flight. You always have to. Your physiology is always thinking, I need to have energy readily available for the emergency. So it's going to always want to fuel up, store. This is the formula. So that said, what are the 5 common mistakes I always see? Number one is CrossFit, HIIT, metabolic conditioning workouts, boot camps. All this nonsense is out. Sweat is not always sweet. So these are great workouts, obviously. They're just not great for you now. Back in the day when I worked with a lot of female competitors, I've been doing this now for 20 years. I was one who was an early internet warrior for intervals and fighting for doing less cardio, but doing high intensity cardio, when the MO, the method of operation for contest prep back in the day, was 2 a day steady states, 10, 15 hours of cardio a week. I'm like, this is so stupid. No wonder everyone's losing all their muscle. Let's just do intervals twice a week, nothing else. At that time, I didn't know the power of walking, but those workouts were really appropriate for those athletes, those females who had young, robust, healthy metabolisms in most cases, and therefore we can recover from them. We're not dealing with these issues. In this chapter of life, that's not the case. So workouts and what you're doing always has to be seen in the context of you. You have to learn to work with your current metabolism, with your current body, okay? So high stress workouts add stress to an already overstressed system. We call this the sympathetic parasympathetic balance. So think of a seesaw, right? You have one, we want this, but you're this. So this is the heavy sympathetic side. This is the too light parasympathetic side. This is like me on one side and you on the other, right? I'm probably quite a bit heavier than you. So you need to do this. What adds weight here? This is stress, sympathetic overdrive. This is the high intensity type of activity in your body, the readiness part. The parasympathetic side is the rest and digest, the relaxed state, the peace state, the reduction of stress and cortisol in the system. So high intensity workouts like HIIT, CrossFit, Metcon, boot camps are by definition and by design sympathetic based workouts, high stress workouts. Again, they are not bad in and of themselves. They don't in and of themselves cause an issue. It is the response and the environment you're already in that makes you non-responsive to these. These create more stress in an overstressed system that is dying to be de-stressed. Does that make sense? So I hear a lot of people also that mention, well, high intensity stuff, it's really stress reliever for me. I just need it to relieve my stress. No, that's not true. It does not relieve your stress because physiologically, by definition, it is high stress activity. What it is a cope. It's a stress distractor. You get maybe the endorphin rush from doing certain things and the feel good MO of it, but it is a stress distractor. And right now, my number one mistake, I often say, replace all of your high intensity, puff, 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 hard as F workouts like this with daily leisurely walking to activate your parasympathetic system for a month, just a month. Give me a month. I guarantee you will thank me in a month, just with how you feel. Now, you won't have this magical physique transformation in a month because you stopped these workouts and started walking. But what it does do is you take off weight from this side, right? And you're adding weight to this side. Walking is one of the most researched topics. It will decrease cortisol, especially if you do it outside in nature. It will help with insulin sensitivity. That's secondary though. What we're really using the walking for is to relax the system. So these walks are not cardio, pound the pavement, burn calorie type walks. They are time with self, take in nature, peaceful, leisurely type of walk, right? That's ideal. Now, I also say, don't always wear headphones. Don't always be listening to a podcast. Don't always be listening to music. Just let your brain go to work. Let your mind unwind. Let it do what it wants to do. This makes a big, big difference. And this is so easy. This is the easiest one to do. Stop doing that. Even if you didn't start walking, if you just stopped the HIIT, you would be in a great place. The difficult aspect, again, like I touched on in the beginning, is years of conditioning can make this really hard. Take your foot off the gas pedal. Really hard. Lean in and do it anyway. Appreciate your body is in a different metabolic state right now and work with it. If you continue to do this, it's not my opinion. This is just basic science and understanding. You are working against your current physiological needs. Mistake number one. Number two, me time isn't a crime. So this is a self-care issue. This isn't selfish. This needs to be a non-negotiable. I had an application just today that I looked at, and she said, well, I just don't have the time. I don't even know why she applied. I don't have the time for me, because I'm too busy taking care of my family. There's just no point in even trying. Addressing belly fat starts with lifestyle adjustments first and foremost. So there's multiple ingredients. We all see the value of training and nutrition. Those are needle-moving ingredients. But if you just focus on those two needle-moving ingredients, your recipe is incomplete and you will not have a tasty dessert on the other side of this. You will not have the right outcome. This is a lifestyle approach because you're not going to escape stress. It doesn't go away. It's part of life. From birth to death, we're going to be dealing with something. It's the human experience. So a lot of times you can't eliminate the cause. So you have to be more diligent around addressing your response. So if you're in a higher stress season, you need to be more serious about stress management behaviors and activities and commitments. These are the rest and relaxation type of workouts. They have to be in place. Otherwise, you have too much sympathetic imbalance. Think of that seesaw that we're trying to rebalance here. If you can get this to happen, and then it comfortably goes like this, but always comes back to this, you will not have a belly fat issue. It will take care of itself. So this is all about stress management and reducing physiological stress. So everything that we're doing here with these mistakes is with that problem in mind. That's the upstream problem. Rest and recovery workouts. I call them this because they are workouts, because everyone skips this stuff. I don't have time for me. I don't have time to unwind. I don't have time. I have these responsibilities. If you have to schedule them, then you schedule them. These really need to be seen as non-negotiables. It's important to see the value in the rest of these ingredients. Why? Because there's no finish line to this. This process can't be seen the way most people see it, which is with a finish line where they stop doing something. It's a marriage. You're married to yourself in this process. Your goal with marriage isn't just to get married, it's to stay married. It's to stay in the game indefinitely, long term, forever, through all of the highs and lows. That's how you have to see this as well. So therefore, lifestyle, habits, so on and so forth, there has to be changes you're willing to make long term for the betterment of your relationship with you, your marriage with you. Side bonus, by the way, when you do start to commit to this kind of stuff, you just show up better for everybody around you anyways, because you do feel that your needs are being met too. You're showing up for yourself. This is what really makes us feel motivated, is actually taking action, right? So this is things like, I mean, you know what it is going to be for you. Everyone has their kind of, de-stressing things. One thing for me, for example, is driving. So I have a nice car. We live out in the country now. There's lots of amazing greenery and single lane, no traffic roads. So Amy and I go for a drive often most evenings. This is a really good one for me. I really like it because I'm at home all day too. But there's reading instead of watching TV, hot baths, leisure walks, conversations, laughing, massage, naps, alone time, meditation, sex, sauna therapy, music, playtime with pets. You know what gives you the it's good, right? You need that. You need to schedule it. Relaxing and restorative activities will help activate the other side of your seesaw, the parasympathetic nervous system. Number 3, no carb left behind. I should have put this one as number 2, although these are not in any particular order. But what do you see? Everyone's afraid of carbohydrates. They're doing low carb diets and keto and intermittent fasting protocols. Context specific. These are not bad protocols. They are just bad for you right now if you identify with the issues we're talking about. They're not appropriate. In fact, they contribute more to the problem. Why? First, again, population context. Ketogenic dieting, low carb dieting, intermittent fasting. I'm not saying these are bad styles of eating. They are inappropriate for you right now. Now, I might think that keto is not sustainable for anybody long-term, which is what I do feel, but in blocks of time, these are fine, just not for you. So population context is really important. You have to remember at every stage, your metabolic stress sensitivity is high. So anything that is contributing to more of this in your body, we want to avoid. Very low carb eating, fasting protocols, they increase cortisol. Why? Because cortisol helps you regulate stable blood sugar levels. This is problematic. If you have cortisol levels that are already chronically elevated from stress, avoiding carbohydrates, fasting, it's just going to pump this hormone up even more to provide that blood sugar that you're not providing through dietary carbohydrate intake. So that's a natural response, but we already have a higher baseline level as it is. So this is going to create a further imbalance to an already compromised and imbalanced system. This is literally the exact opposite. So carbs are your friend right now. This is a state where in perimenopause, for example, you do not want to be very low carbohydrate at all. Carbohydrate will stimulate metabolism. They will stimulate thyroid output, so on and so forth. Once you're in menopause, you lose estrogen, unless you're on HRT and stuff, but you lose estrogen's positive effects on insulin sensitivity. This is where walking comes in, but also you have to be mindful of carbohydrate intake in that menopausal season because of the loss of insulin sensitivity that you would get from healthy estrogen levels. So carbs help metabolism, like I said here. They will help your training. You get better pumps. You have more fullness. You have more productive workouts, more energy in your workouts. They help you build muscle. They'll help your sleep. Carbs will help your thyroid. They will help your mood. So generally speaking, I tend to start around 100 grams of carbs on non-training days and around 150 on training days. So there's a bit of a carb cycle in there, although I don't do it for the reasons of a carb cycle. I just figure days we lift, we consume more carbohydrates, we're going to use them. Days we don't, we're going to consume more fat and a bit less carbohydrates and keep protein and calories, if that's the plan, stable. The other thing with carbohydrate intake is a lot of times people get up at nighttime to go pee, right? And me too. And I know what the cause is. It's not because I drink a lot of water, because I don't drink a lot of water before bed. And people assume they wake up to pee. They don't. Because they wake up, they go to the bathroom. They're not waking up because they have to go to the bathroom. It's the other way around. So the wake up is happening most typically because their blood sugar has dropped and then cortisol has to come up to provide that blood sugar. If you are above a baseline, if your baseline of cortisol is higher now, you will cross the wake up threshold. Remember, cortisol is a awakening hormone, a readiness hormone. You will cross the alertness, the wake up threshold earlier. And therefore, you're awake because your body had to raise cortisol to provide blood sugar. Now you're awake. Now you go to the bathroom. You didn't wake up because you had to pee. It's the other way around. You woke up because of the blood sugar, and then your body's like, well, go pee. So oftentimes this could be eradicated by consuming some carbohydrates before bed. Berries are really great here because, or like a low GI fruit, because they will glycogenate or be stored in the liver, and the liver is what's responsible for providing and interacting with cortisol overnight, that blood sugar stability through the night. Number 4, rest to de-stress. Sleep is the gatekeeper of metabolic health. Now, everybody says, yeah, I know. Of course, everybody knows sleep's important. Well, you don't, because you don't take it seriously. So this is one of the things that you'll notice starts to go a bit wonky in hormone imbalance situations is sleep. And the issue is it becomes a chicken and the egg thing. Where do you intercept? Poor sleep causes poor cortisol rhythms and poor stress rhythms, and cortisol goes back and interrupts sleep. But this is going to play a pivotal role in regulating metabolic and appetite hormones. It's normal as we age for sleep to be more challenging. There's nothing unusual about that. But you also have to recognize that from a lifestyle standpoint, most people have pretty crappy sleep hygiene, crappy sleep habits, and therefore they sleep like crap, but they're not even really, there's a lot to improve is what I'm saying, which we'll talk about quickly here. But you have to take the sleep routine as important as you take your training routine. I would say also when I talk about walking, you got to take that walking. These are all super important elements, ingredients, and it's important to not overweight or overemphasize the importance of one to the exclusion of other ones, because they need the support of these ingredients to work. Speaking of diet and training specifically. So poor sleep can lead to increased cortisol levels, further encouraging belly fat gain, further encouraging fatigue issues, further encouraging inconsistent hunger and appetite signals throughout the day. So this is magic. If you can establish circadian rhythm, which is your body's biological clock, you will also establish a more natural cortisol biorhythm for the day as well. So this is when we have a very predictable response in the body. So the beauty of a circadian rhythm is your body loves predictability. Think of how many things in your physiology operate on a cycle, your menstrual cycle, so on and so forth. But this is predictable. So when you have a regular bedtime and a regular wake up time, what happens? You start to get tired around the same time. You start to wake up around the same time, even without an alarm. What happens if you eat at the same time of day every day? You predictably get hungry at those times. You control the hunger response. This is providing your body inputs that it physiologically desires. So you're almost hacking the system a little bit. A lot of times we're providing all these wrong inputs that are further contributing to the problem, hence the body becoming so reactive and stressed. So provide it what it wants to, which is structure, regularity, predictability, routine, so on and so forth. In the case of circadian rhythm, what happens is you end up with a predictable production of essential hormones overnight in the different sleep cycles at the same time each night. If you go through these different sleep cycles and you don't have the same routine, your body never really knows your body never really goes through the cycle of sleep. And then you never get these positive hormonal responses in these phases because there's no establishment around it. So what did I write here? Predictable production of essential hormones at the right time, facilitating natural wake up and sleep readiness. Right. So cortisol, for example, isn't all bad. This is a readiness hormone like we talked about, but there's something called the cortisol awakening response. This is why we like to not have caffeine in these first 2 hours, because it interrupts this response. This is how your body wakes up, that cortisol response. So as we have establishment around timing, this will predictably wake you up at the same time. Now, when you have this predictability in your body, this is when you know things are turning. This is when you know things are going well now, because it's like putting in something into an input, knowing what the expected output is, and that's what it is, because it likes that. It's predictability. So routine and structure is really everything when it comes to sleep. So this is going to bed at the same time, getting up at the same time. Yeah, 7 days a week, actually. I know that's difficult. So you got to weigh it out for yourself. If you're getting up at 3 a.m. on Monday to Friday, then of course, I don't expect you to get up at 3 a.m. on Saturday, Sunday, but you got to realize that it's really hard to establish a sleep cycle and your rhythm if you have inconsistent schedules. So you generally have a variance allowability of about 30 minutes. So what I might suggest in that case is perhaps, the weekends you push a little bit, but you still try your best to have some type of establishment around the weekends. This makes a big difference. And who doesn't want to sleep better anyways? So the other thing I would suggest, and this is changing with the weather, but morning sunlight, 5 to 10 minutes of morning sunlight to start your sleep routine effectively for the night. The reason why is that sunlight opposes melatonin, right? Melatonin is one of your sleep hormones. It goes up at night. Cortisol will oppose this as well. And it's down in the morning. So when you get sunlight in your eyes in the morning, it turns off this melatonin faucet. And what happens is there's this 12 to 14 hour countdown from that sunlight exposure to where melatonin will start to rise again and prepare you for sleep. So PM evening routines, there's a lot of things that people do in the nighttime that really negatively impact their ability to sleep. So no evening routine, a lot of blue light exposure before bed, screens in their face, reactive consumption of whatever media, news, thriller movies, whatever is allows you or puts you in a reactive state to potentially be wound up. Maybe eating too much before bed, things like that. So you want to have a wind down routine that prepares you for sleep. You need to get this circadian rhythm established. This is one that you will notice something. This is one that you will notice positive effects from without question if you just anchor down the consistency around the routine. So you'll notice that everything ends up being very routine based, and routine in general is very de-stressing for your brain. Why? Because there's no decisions to make. You only have so many decisions to make per day, hence the term decision fatigue. And when we are operating in routine, there's an automaticity in our nervous systems that requires no thought, no thinking, no mental energy, and therefore it's just very robotic and therefore de-stressing just by definition. Number 5, muscle matters. So this is your middle-aged metabolism's very best friend. So this also goes back to number 1 in terms of how you train. So many women are so focused on burning calories in the gym and burning fat off and getting in shape through exercise. This doesn't work. This is not the appropriate way for you to train right now. This is a big mental mistake to think that you can work it off or burn it off. There's enough research that shows that exercise is useless, essentially, pretty much near useless for weight loss. Now, it's a very powerful additive to weight loss maintenance, but it doesn't contribute very much to actual weight loss. So you really need to focus your gym time not on calorie burning. This 1 hour of your day, a few times a week, needs to be focused on building muscle, building strength, development, enhancing yourself, so on and so forth. This is your metabolic medicine, the organ of longevity, as I've heard somebody say. Muscle, it's going to help the activities of daily living remain easier. It's going to keep you looking better as you get older. It's going to keep you healthier. Proper training will also help rebalance and retrain that sympathetic parasympathetic balance. Remember the seesaw that we talked about. So when I talk about proper training, this is more bodybuilding style training that is geared towards hypertrophy or muscle building. So a lot of times you see these short rest interval training. Even if you're lifting weights, you're not resting enough. Everyone's like doing cardio with weights practically. What is the sympathetic activation? It's the readiness part. What is the parasympathetic activation? It's rest and relax. It's up and down. So when you think of proper bodybuilding style training, which is geared towards strength and recovery between sets, you have your hard set, and you take a nice long rest interval. Hard set, long rest interval. This is how you apply the most tension to muscles, how you get more muscular progress anyways from longer rest intervals, because you can train heavier. But this is also a side benefit, is that it helps retrain that activation, relaxation balance. So muscle is also a very powerful endocrine and hormone organ. Makes a lot of sense. It's also the primary site of insulin resistance, which is going to be an issue as cortisol levels rise. Insulin resistance, belly fat gain. Muscle insulin resistance is one of the primary finds or defects in nearly all kind of chronic illnesses that show up. Like I write here, heart disease, cancer, obesity. We always see insulin resistance in the muscles, a non-healthy muscle. So this is also your largest storehouse of glucose. Everybody has somewhat of a diabetic slide with age, right? It's the wear and tear kind of it's the wear and tear in action, sorry. So the more muscle you have, the more space or storage you have for carbohydrates, for glucose. The less muscle you have, the less you have for that. So another reason why muscle matters. So this is the most metabolically active tissue in your body. We all know that. And the more metabolically healthy your muscles are, the better your body is going to manage carbohydrate intake. The key point with training is more recovery focus. You can't be training 5-6 days a week. It doesn't work anymore. 3 to 4 days a week on a properly built bodybuilding program that is focusing on recovery, not overtraining. Stimulate, recover, stimulate, recover. So conclusion, Q&A. So this is really what it should look like. This is our paradigm here, this pyramid. It's mindset, right? If you can't be consistent, you can't be focused, you can't be disciplined, you got no shot. It doesn't really matter what the program looks like or what you do. If you worked out here and there, you walked here and there, you went to sleep on time here and there, nothing works, right? So this is the core fundamental process that everyone overlooks, in that your success is really a personal development journey. A lot of times, if you ever read Atomic Habits by James Clear, in the beginning, he's got these pictures and it shows, circle, circle, circle. And most people assume it's outcome, process, identity. So you get the outcome and it changes your identity. It changes who you are and how you see yourself. That's not how it works. It's identity, process, outcome. So you have to look at this through a very holistic, long-term marriage type of attitude that focuses on habit-based lifestyle that serves balance, that serves recovery, that serves stress management, right? So stress management, targeted nutrition, good sleep, training properly. These are really all low-hanging fruits. Which one is hard? Now, the hard one is the mindset, consistency, focus, and discipline. This is a lot about environment, being in a good community, having accountability, having even strategies. A lot of people think, I'm working on my mindset. Well, how? It's not a try harder issue. There's tools and strategies out there for that. There's coaching for that. There's conversations, there's help. But that's the foundation of everything. But everything else, number one mistake, stop doing all the hard, crazy stuff and go for some walks. Pretty straightforward. Number two, what was number two anyways? Me time isn't a crime. You deserve to take some recovery time, right? You can't see yourself as last place in this situation because it won't work. You need to carve out some time for yourself to bring the relaxation and close the stress loop in your body. Pretty easy if you just plan and prepare for it. We're not asking too much here. Number three, no carb left behind. How easy is this one? Stop with the low carb stuff. Stop suffering through intermittent fasting. Eat some carbohydrates. Have a balanced diet. Include fruit in your diet. Number four, rest to de-stress. Go to bed on time. Stop staying up so late. Just stop. Just go to bed. There's nothing good happening past a certain time anyways. You have a hard time getting up in the morning, go to bed earlier. Number five, muscle matters. So this is really more a correction for some people. Those of you in my training group, we're already doing this right. So this is just a reminder of why we do this. But those of you that are not training this way now, you need to focus more on recovery, focus more on getting strong, lifting heavier, building muscle, seeing progress in the gym, and really kind of abolishing the I'm in the gym to burn calories, to lose fat, to get in shape. It's not the gym's responsibility. That's the responsibility of the rest of your day. So again, these are all low-hanging fruits. as I said in the beginning, the hardest part is the mental and emotional aspect of this, and accepting that you're dealing with a different metabolic environment right now, and that just things that you've had success for or feel that you've had success for in the past are not working now. And that's frustrating, but there's an explanation for it. And fortunately, there's another path that makes sense as well. So fundamentally, you need to believe in what I'm talking about here to step into it, because of this difficulty with releasing this past stuff that used to work for you, even though you logically know it ain't working now, right? So step into it. What used to work will not work again. And I'd argue for many, it's why you're struggling more now than you should be. So metabolic health, movement, meals, not macros, and training for muscle. So I had one more slide here, which was a resource slide, and it's gone now, so that sucks. Let me think here as I wrap this up. How could I provide this with you? I wanted to give a podcast link to the metabolic and menopausal mind games episode I did with Amy last year. That's a good one. If you've not heard that one and you want to fill in the blanks and just kind of understanding this a bit better, although I think I did a pretty good job here. There's another podcast about how much cardio should I be doing? Short answer, not much. And then I'll give a link to our Look Like You Train group. So this is a group that opens 4 times a year, but it's ongoing. So it is just an ongoing community that really focuses on all of this, right? Mostly women, in fact, 95% women. And we attack all of these things. The central hub of the group is the training program, as you know, if you're in my group, and then it's everything else that we teach around nutrition, stress management, and all of this stuff here. So I'll drop a link to that as well. If you want to just to squeak into that, shoot me a message. We're already a few weeks into this round. The next round will be December. So anyways, I hope you got something good out of this one and enjoyed the replay. And if you have any questions, of course, on this one, shoot me a DM, but put these things into practice. They are pretty easy to implement, okay? Just more difficult on the mental side. So I'll talk to you soon. See you in the group. And now I will end my recording.